Hi, I'm Dave Ulrich. What a delight to be with you. I look forward to the discussion. Today we're going to talk about a very simple question. What makes an effective HR professional? That's a question that's been around for a long time. In 1987, with Wayne Brockbank, Dale Lake, and Arthur Young, we began a study of competencies of successful HR professionals. And over the last 25 years, we've done a study every 5 years to look at what HR professionals need to be, know, and do to be successful. In 2007, we found 6 sets of skills of a successful HR professional aligned around people and business. Credible activist, you need to know. You need to build credibility. Business ally, you need to connect with the business. Strategy architect, you need to be able to frame and build strategy. Operational executor, you need to make sure the people side gets done well. Human resource developer and managing the human resource systems, and culture and change and managing culture. That has been a terrific model. But what's happened in the last few years, through 2012, there have been a number of changes in the world we live in. We're more global, clearly more global. We're more competitive. The cycle time for change is increasing. We have to build individual and organizational success. So in 2011, with some incredible partners, co-sponsored by the University of Michigan and RBL Group, we've been able to look at what's the evolution of the skill set for HR people going forward. With the facilitation of our incredible partners around the world, we collected data from just over 20,000 people. And we begin to ask them, both HR professionals and line managers, what makes a successful HR professional in this changing and evolving world? What we found were 6 things, but they're somewhat different than this. At the middle, you still need to be a credible activist. This is someone who takes care of him or herself as an HR person. They're credible, they're trustworthy, they're dependable, and they're an activist. They have a point of view. Not only about the business, about themselves, but about the business and how the business operates. What we also found is that you have to be a strategic positioner. It's very interesting. HR today has to be able to position the business that they work in the outside context. That's in the world in which we live. That's with social, technological, economic, demographic trends, managing customers, managing stakeholders. And we found there were 4 critical factors inside the organization you have to manage. You have to be a capability builder. We have to see someone who integrates the HR practices into a set of capabilities. You have to be a change champion. Have to be somebody that manages change and makes it happen because the world is changing. Have to be an HR innovator and integrator. Innovation means doing new and creative HR things, and to be a technology proponent. That's our model. Let me talk about the evolution and then some of the details. Some of the evolution is the same. In 2007, we found that you have to be a credible activist. It's continued. Today, you still have to be a credible activist. But more than ever, that means having a point of view about how the business succeeds in what it does. It's not enough to build trust. It's trust with a perspective. What we then found is knowing the business and strategy architect come into being a strategic positioner. We've raised the bar on HR. We haven't, but our data has. Here, you have to know finance, marketing, strategy. You have to know the basics of business. That's true. And instead of being an architect of strategy or co-architect, you have to be able to position your business in the markets and economies in which we serve. We found in this data that if HR doesn't know the business and link to strategy, they're going to be in trouble. That's not enough. You have to take that knowledge and position your company to be successful. HR. HR now has to do 2 very specific things. One is innovate. In staffing, training, development, we have to innovate. We have to look at the next generation. And we have to integrate. And one of the most fascinating things we found within HR is that it's around people, it's around performance, it's around communication, it's around organization, but it's also around leadership. And leadership becomes the integrator that allows those other things to happen. Operational efficiency is now part of technology proponent. Technology has 3 levels. One level of technology is getting the basics done well, doing HR more efficiently, getting HR done effectively. HR is getting outsourced. It's being done through technology. Another source of technology proficiency is sharing information. We suddenly live in an information-rich world. But ultimately, technology is a proficient lever when it builds a social media, when the knowledge and data we have connects to the customer and to the employee. And then the change issue has separated. Change has become so critical that we have to manage change. 2 parts. One is initiating change, and the other is sustaining change. And culture. Culture is now part of the creation of a set of capabilities. Everything in HR gets integrated around what the organization is known for and good at doing. That's the capability builder. And HR cannot just be an isolated set of practices. It has to be someone that integrates those. And what we found is those 6 sets of skills make an HR professional effective. They explain how good a job I do in HR. Can I manage those things well? And in fact, the most critical is credible activist. It continues to be a central part. But it also determines how effective my business is. And in business effectiveness, it's not just credible activist. It's strategic positioning. Can I position my company in the marketplace in which we work? We call that HR from the outside in. Can I build HR into a unified set of capabilities? Innovation, collaboration, service. Can I build those capabilities? Can I master change? What we found that's actually very interesting around that, to be personally effective, you have to initiate change. To build business success, you have to sustain change. The sustainability piece becomes critical. Can I innovate and integrate HR, especially around leadership and building a sustained leadership group? And can I create technological proficiency? It's one of the keys to HR having an impact on business. What makes an effective HR professional? We've studied it for 25 years. We now have confidence that 20,000 people, half from HR, half from line management, have given us specific, concrete counsel as to what we should know and do. What a great time to be in HR. We're no longer crying for attention. We have opportunities to make a difference. HR professionals anywhere in the world have to be credible activists. And what we found with credible activists is it makes me be seen as a successful and effective HR professional. When I have this relationship of trust with my business leaders, they respect me and it drives business performance. In fact, of the 6 factors, it explains 22% of effective HR. Am I seen as successful? The other 5 factors are all equal at about 17%. But here's the other interesting thing. Does it make HR effective in driving business results? And now it's down to 12%. So being a credible activist makes me seen as good. I like my HR person. It doesn't drive business results as much as some of the others. But having said that, credible activists, we've got to do it. We've got to be credible, relationships of trust, and we've got to be activists. We've got to have a strong point of view. We found there are 4 factors in becoming a credible activist. And let me just talk through what those are. 1, we have to earn trust. We earn trust by doing what we say we'll do. Stephen Covey did a great book. It's The 8th Habit. Change at the speed of trust. Can we in HR be credible because we're trusted? Do we meet our commitments? Do we do what we say we're going to do? Can I be trusted in the work that I do? I meet a lot of HR professionals. And I say, how well do you get along with your business leader? And they say, I get along great. I do what I'm asked. I've worked consistently with the integrity, with ethics, and doing what I'm asked. But it's not enough. Do we influence and relate to others? We call this in some of our work HR with an attitude. It's not enough to have trust and let you spend some of the goodwill points. Do I influence? Do I push back? And the pushback is not just on HR, it's also on business. Do I have a point of view? Do I make myself known about what the business should be doing to be successful? And that's not enough. This one talks about improvement through self-awareness. Every one of us have strengths and weaknesses. We have things that we're good at, things that we're not so good at. The best HR professionals who are credible activists are very self-aware. They know who they are, they know what they want, and they know their strengths and weaknesses so they can complement themselves with others. And finally, do I help shape the profession? This is interesting in this data. It's not as big a predictor of business success, but it is a piece that our line managers want. We don't want HR professionals to be ashamed of our profession. Line managers say, I want an HR professional who's proud of what they do and who they are. That's it. We need to be credible activists. It is especially important for being an effective HR professional, but it also helps HR be effective in driving business results. Be credible by earning trust, be an activist through our influence and relationships, be self-aware, and be concerned with and dedicated to the development of our profession. I am so grateful in the job that I have. Every year I meet thousands of HR professionals. Most of them have mastered these skills, and it's a privilege to be a part of that profession. The basic theory of strategic positioning is we have to look outside the organization and bring the outside in. In other words, an HR professional has to say, I'm doing staffing, and I want to be the employer of choice, but I want to be the employer of choice of employees our customers would choose. I'm doing training. I want to do training programs that will commit our employees to be more effective. But a strategic positioner says they're going to be more effective, not in terms of the skills they learn, but how they will position our business to win. We believe that HR professionals going forward have to be able to position their business in the markets in which they serve. And the data from 20,000 people says that's a critical HR competence. Now, when we get under that outside in, we begin to find a couple of things. One is, it explains about 17% of how successful I am as an HR professional. It's equal to the other 6, except credible activists, which is 22%. The other is, it explains about 15% of how successful my business is. So business success will come from being a successful strategic positioner. When we get underneath that when we get underneath that strategic positioning, we find there's 3 things an HR professional needs to master. One is to interpret the global context. There's 2 parts of that. One is I have to understand the context in which I work. Social, technological, economic, political, demographic, trends, and I need to know that setting. HR professionals should be aware of and attuned to that outside setting in which they work. And I should understand the stakeholders with whom I work. We found in our research that those HR professionals who are able to do that can position the HR work in the settings in which they live. There's a company in Europe called MOL. It's a mining manufacturing company. A few years ago, they recognized the context in which they worked would have fewer and fewer employees who were engineers because people weren't taking engineering in school. They began to invest heavily in high school, in universities, in Eastern Europe, in engineering degrees. Today, because they manage that context, there are more engineers who will go into their company. HR professionals need to connect to the global world in which we live. Second, they need to decode the customer expectations. HR professionals, particularly with customers, need to know who the customers are of our company and what they expect and how we serve them well. It's not enough to serve an employee. It is critical to serve an employee so that that employee will serve a customer. Boots, the store in the United Kingdom, has found a strong correlation between employee attitude and commitment and customer attitude. And they're dedicated to bringing the employee into their HR practices. When we do training, how would the employees respond? Could employees help design training? Could the employees help participate in training? Could they co-present the training? We need to decode customers. And what's fascinating about this is it affects us to be an effective HR professional, but it even has more impact on how well we impact business performance. We need to connect with outside customers. And third, we need to co-craft the strategic agenda in a company. HR professionals are architects. We co-create with the leaders in the company what the strategy is in the company. We bring that outside strategy into a set of HR practices. And when we co-craft that agenda, we get seen as effective. Again, what's really interesting about that, when we can co-craft the strategy, we're seen as effective HR people. It doesn't have as much impact, though, as connecting with customers in building business effectiveness. That's an interesting subtlety. So, I want to be a strategic positioner. I'm an HR professional. Do I interpret and understand the global business context in which I work, the setting and the stakeholders? Do I decode customer expectations into internal organizational actions? And do I co-create the strategy? All three are critical to being an effective HR professional and to having HR be effective in business results. Decoding the customer is the most critical for driving business results. Co-crafting the strategy is most critical for being seen as effective. This is one of the shifts in HR. We love seeing HR professionals not just talk about being a partner, but literally being one, because they can be strategic positioners. The need for change is greater than ever. In the last 5 years, from 2007 to 2012, when we've done these studies, the pace of change in the world in which we lived has been huge. The Arab Spring, the global economic crisis, the huge influx of technology with cloud computing, Facebook now being the third largest country in the world, change is dramatic, and it is huge. How does HR become a champion to help manage that change? And we identified in our research 2 things. Number one, you have to be excellent at helping initiate change. Can I help my organization build a case for change? Do we understand why we're doing it? Can I help my organization know what we're changing to? The initiation of change is the ability to get people started, to get people engaged, to get people feeling, yes, we must respond. An executive told me once, he said, it took 50 years to build a business. We can lose it in 18 months if we don't adapt and respond. Can I initiate and get over that momentum? Second is, can I sustain it? Sustaining change means having the capacity to last and endure over time, and to make sure that the change that we initiate has resources, has capacity, and the ability to sustain change. Here's what we found. Those HR individuals who are seen as effective are especially good at initiating change. So if you're an HR professional and you say, I want my managers, I want other HR people, I want staff to think I'm capable and good, be good at initiating change. Get started. Make a difference. Help build the case for change. But those HR professionals who are effectively using HR to drive business results are especially good at sustaining change. Initiating change gets me respected. Sustaining change gives me results. That is a fascinating finding. Norm Smallwood and I are now writing a book. We think the next step in leadership is called leadership sustainability. And the challenge of leadership and HR professionals to help leaders is to sustain the change that leaders know they should do. Lots of times we know why we should change and what we should change to. Sustainability is about how we change. And our job in HR is to help leaders and our organizations sustain the changes that we put in place. That's what we found in our research. If you want to be an effective HR professional, you have to do both, initiate and sustain change, especially initiate. If you want HR to effectively drive business results, you have to be especially good at sustaining change. Now let me give you a peek preview of our book. We think there's 7 things that are critical to leaders who sustain change. 1, simple results. Don't make it complex, make it simple. Second, time. How do we as HR professionals focus our leaders' time on the things they should do? Not what they say, but what they do. Third, accountability. How do we help leaders be publicly and personally accountable for the sustained changes they have? Third, resources. This may mean coaching, and it may mean our HR practices. Build coaching and practices so that leaders do what they say they'll do. Track. We sustain what we measure. Track the results. Meliorate, bad word, but meliorate means that we learn and we grow. And sustaining change is not doing the same thing. It's improving and getting better. And finally, find the emotion that comes from change. In our research on sustainability, those are the principles we can weave into sustainability. When we do it, we help organizations change, we're change champions, and we drive effective business results. Often in HR, we focus on the individual. Who's got talent? And how do we build talent? What I love with capability is the talent has to come together in teamwork. And you have to make the whole more than the individual parts. The example we love to use is sports. The person who scores the most points in the World Cup, the winner of the Golden Boot, is on the winning team about 20% of the time. The team is more important than the individual. In basketball, the leading scorer is on the team that wins the NBA championship about 20% of the time. In movies, the winner of the actor or actress award in the Oscars is on the movie that wins the Oscar of the year about 20% of the time. Capability building is when you make, this is capability building, it's when you make the whole greater than the parts, when the team is better than the individuals, and when we pull together differences. Now, what's really interesting about that is we found that the capacity to build capabilities has an impact on how well you're seen as an effective HR professional, about 17%. But it has an impact at about 19% if you're driving business performance. So managing this capability set is critical. The organization is not a structure, it's a set of capabilities. Now, when we get underneath that, we found there's three things that capability builders have to be able to do. One is they have to be able to capitalize organizational capabilities. What does that mean? Norm Smallwood and I wrote an article in Harvard Business Review a few years ago that said organization is not structure but capability. A capability represents what an organization is known for and good at. Apple is known for innovation. Walmart is known for low cost. Ministry of Manpower in Singapore is known as a great government agency to serve its constituents. Every organization begins to define and create a set of capabilities. And it's an identity of a company. And when HR professionals can do that, they tend to be successful. What we have to do is define what capabilities might exist and then do capability audits. A capability audit is simply saying, do we have the capabilities in our company that our customers and business leaders expect? And we need to capitalize those capabilities and prioritize which ones are important. Second, we need to make an alignment between strategy, capability, and action. There has to be a strategy. Where's my company going? What capabilities then do I need to establish within my company to succeed? And what actions will I take in terms of HR practices, leadership behaviors, and ultimately what result will I get? HR professionals are the architects and the innovators around that. And the third thing we found that was fascinating in our data from 20,000 people is one of the key capabilities is creating a meaningful work environment. This is one of the most interesting trends we've seen. The work around employee engagement, the work around positive psychology, the work around meaning and purpose at work, that begins to be an absolutely critical capability. And it deals with things like work-life balance, like helping employees find meaning in their work, like being positive and creating abundance. That's one of the capabilities that we find absolutely critical. So I want to be a successful HR professional. Be able to focus on capabilities, capitalize them, define them, audit them, align them, and then build meaning into the organization. And if I want my HR business to drive business success and to be effective in HR, I have to do that set of capabilities. My sense is this is one of the greatest opportunities for HR in the future. We often talk about talent, high talent. HR should build talent and individuals. This is the organization. HR should build those sets of capabilities and create the capabilities and build them that help us succeed. The McKinsey consulting firm and Duke University have just done recent studies. They've said one of the top issues for companies around the world is the establishment of an organizational set of capabilities that outlast and outperforms individual talent. Great opportunity for HR. Can we define, can we shape a set of organizational capabilities? We're going to talk for a minute about technology and being a technology proponent. First, most obvious thing. In the last 5 years and in the last 10 years, technology has dominated the world in which we live. We now have internet computing, we have cloud. We connect through technology in dramatic and different ways. Work used to be face-to-face. Now work is around connecting through the technology that we have. HR is a part of that game because the world of work has changed so dramatically. But here's what's really interesting. If I know technology, it explains about 12% of how effective I'm seen as an HR professional. Now, if you notice, there's 6 of these divided into 100. That's about 17% each. It's the least important of the 6 skills to being seen as good. It's interesting. But it's about the most important to being seen as how we can use HR to drive business results. It's 19%. If I want to drive business results, I have to master technology. And I have to use it as an HR professional to help my business be successful. Absolutely critical. So what goes into that? 3 things. 1, HR operations. I've been asking the last year or two, so what happened to the day-to-day operational work of HR? And here's the take. It's got to be done. It's got to be done brilliantly. It's got to be done well. It's got to be done flawlessly. And it's going to be done through technology. If we cannot do the basics of HR well, efficiently, operationally excellent, if we can't do those things well, we lose credibility. And HR today is being done through technology. Compensation, staffing, training. All the HR systems have to be in place. We need operational excellence with the basics of HR. Somebody saw our model once and said, well, you've left out the HR day-to-day work. Wrong. It's now being done through technology. Second, connecting people through HR. Think about your world of work. Let me think about mine. The people I'm connected with may not be face-to-face. We don't need to come to an office to see people to work together. Technology can connect people. And we in HR should be central to that. Do people work at home? Do they work different hours? How do we organize our HR systems to allow those processes to work well? HR should drive efficiency, the operational work well. We should connect people through the networks and the things that we have. And third, we should become very invested in the social media. The social media tell me that technology can create work as a social setting. And we can use that social media to upgrade our HR practices. Some companies are using Facebook and LinkedIn in their hiring. We're using social media to connect with people around the world, to share knowledge and to share information. When we in HR can do the basics well through our HR technology and systems, can connect people who don't need to be face-to-face through technology, and can use social media, we can succeed. Now let me just give a caveat. All of those 3 things mean I'm a technology proponent. That doesn't mean that there still is a lot of relationship building we have to do. We have to help people connect with each other emotionally and socially. But the technology, ironically enough, drives business results as much as any of the other 6 domains. This is a great new world for HR, and some are doing this brilliantly. We hope everybody can master the basics, the relationships, and the connection outside the company through the technology we bring. HR professionals have to be innovators and integrators. This is one that's evoked a lot of debate among our team. What does it mean to be a good HR professional? It's not the same as finance or marketing or other business functions, IT. There are some unique skills and knowledge in HR we have to know. And when we think about those HR practice areas, there's things we have to understand and master to be successful. And what do we have to know? We have to innovate them. We have to do new things. We can't do talent or compensation in the way we've done it before. And we have to integrate those. What we found in our work was the model of integration really has three parts. There's something to do with talent. That gets into workforce planning, managing people. There's something to do with performance. That gets into compensation. It gets into appraisal systems. And there's something to do with work, organization, and communication. That gets into the organization and culture we build. And in the middle is leadership. The heart that we found in this round of our study is that leadership is the place where HR innovation and integration needs to occur the most. Because leadership takes talent and moves it forward. It drives performance and accountability. It drives the work organization and the organization and communication processes. That's the picture of HR integration. HR professionals should focus on talent, performance, work and organization, and leadership. Now, to lay that out, we found there's 5 things that successful HR professionals need to know and do in that framework. One is we have to ensure today and tomorrow's talent. Do we build talent for the future? Do we focus on what's next? One of the things we discovered with a quick example, I was in a meeting where they were looking at succession. And they were saying, I think successor should be person A, person B, person C. I stopped and I said, what's the business of the future like? What will be the requirements? What's the changing world in which you'll live? Once we define that, then we could rate person A, B, and C against those set of criteria. HR people should do workforce planning, looking at what that talent looks like as we go forward. Second is we have to develop talent today. We have to do a marvelous job in a global talent management process at delivering training and work experiences. Here we look at the workforce and what's next. Here we look at our skills today and how we move them. That's talent. The next thing we do is we have to be able to drive performance. Performance becomes such a key factor. HR has to be connected to the reward system, the appraisal system, the compensation and culture within the company. In the research we've done before, it's really interesting. When HR professionals fill out our surveys, they take compensation separately from the HR practices. When line managers fill out our surveys, they put compensation with the HR practices. And the line managers are right. Compensation, benefits, appraisal systems, the total reward mechanism has to be connected. It isn't just hiring and training people, they have to be paid in an integrated way. The third one, or the next one we found, is shaping the organization and communication systems. Building work and organization. Do we have the right structure, the roles, the rules, the routines? Do we have great communications? Information communication is a key. And again, each of these areas has to be integrated around what we call leadership as a brand. This is new in the research in 2012. Traditionally, HR professionals work on talent, developing it, nurturing it, reward systems, driving performance, organization, communication. What we have now found is that work needs to be both innovative and integrated around leadership. Because unless the leaders in your company model and practice what you're building into your systems, it won't be sustained. Our work at RBL for the last 20 years now has been building leadership as a unique and defined skill set. Our research now says that's a part of the HR innovator and integrator role, and it's a critical part. So you want to be a good HR professional, you got to know and do HR. Those 5 factors around that picture allow us to both be effective as an HR professional and to use HR to drive business effectiveness. That's what we think HR has to be doing.